Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Kasia and I'm going to talk today about accidents and emergencies, as you can see on the slide. Right, I'm sure lots of you will be going away on holidays soon, perhaps abroad to some hot, maybe some exotic countries. And apart from packing your bags and checking if your passport's still valid, it's also a good idea to equip yourselves with such knowledge, so that in the case of an emergency, you can call for help, you can describe the situation, you can talk to and understand the doctor, ask for help at the chemist. Right, so let me tell you now what topics will be covered in this webinar. First of all, I'd like us to talk a little about various types of accidents and emergencies. Then we'll focus on first aid. Later on we'll talk a little about accidents and emergencies department, the kind of place in a hospital you can go to. Then we'll perhaps just revise some phrases you can hear when at the doctor's. We'll also revise body parts, body organs. We'll talk about injuries, so things that can happen to the body, and treatment, right? How these injuries can be treated, cured. Last but not least, we'll have a look at the first aid kit, and we'll talk about how it should be equipped, what we should have in it. Right, so let me start with the question. When you go on holidays, what actually can go wrong? What emergencies come to your mind? What can happen? When you go away, when you stay at a hotel in a faraway country, what can happen? What comes to your mind? If you could use that question box to answer. All right, I see some answers are coming. Oh, someone says falling from the stars. I think you mean the stairs. Oh, that's so funny. A car accident, of course. You can break a limb, right? A leg or an arm. All right, someone says food poisoning. I also have this one on my list. And I see some other ones, like getting sunburned. Lift accidents, of course. You can get stuck in a lift, right? Anything else that comes to your mind, perhaps? Yes, you can lose conscience, that's right, and that's something we're going to talk about too. Right, thank you. So let's have a look at my list now. So apart from food poisoning, so that's what happens when you eat some food which is not fresh. What else can happen? Well, actually, when eating some food that is not fresh, you can end up, well, in the toilet, right? You sort of keep going to the toilet. That is, you suffer from diarrhea, two types of spelling. What else can happen? Well, you can choke. This is what happens. Or perhaps you know, perhaps someone knows what it means. If you could use the question box to, if you know what it means. Ah, right. I see some people know it. Exactly. So this is when you cannot breathe properly because your throat is blocked, usually with some food, right? Yes, it's something gets stuck in your throat and you can't breathe. Exactly. Very good. Thank you. Let's have a look at some other things that can happen. Allergy, right? So say you eat some food first time in your life and suddenly you discover you're allergic to it. It might come out in a rash, like some red spots on your body. Of course, you can get sunburned when spending too much time in the sun. But actually, if you think of winter holidays and spending them in a very low temperature, like if it's extremely cold, what can happen is actually you can get frostbitten. Right? Frostbite. This is the very serious medical condition that makes your fingers, your toes swell. They become darker, and actually, finally, they can even fall off. Very serious thing to happen. Right, what else? Animal bites, right? So you can be bitten by a dog, for instance. Or insect stings, right? You can be stung by a bee or a wasp, for instance. some of the most things which can happen to us when we're on holidays. Some of you have mentioned car accidents, and that's actually the next thing I'd like us to talk about: car emergencies and accidents. So one of the things which can happen to us when we travel by car is, well, it can simply break down. Right? We might have a problem with the car. It simply won't go. What else can happen? Well, we can have a flat tire, right? So we have a hole in the tire and it must be changed. Well, some people suffer from travel or motion sickness. That's when you feel sick in the car, especially when traveling for a few hours and you feel like vomiting, right? Some of the accidents that can happen in a car is skidding. So this is what happens when you drive along a slippery, wet road, and suddenly you cannot control it, right? So the car skids. As a result, it can actually fall into a ditch. That's the first thing we see on the next slide. A ditch being this long narrow hole dug at the side of the road, right? So we can fall into it. A car can also overturn. It could be a rollover, so it means the car lands on its roof. What can also happen is a car can bump into another car, another vehicle, can bump into a tree. And actually it's useful to remember that the plastic part of the car that you have at the front of the car and at the back of the car is called the bumper. So that's actually the thing you hit first, right? When you hit another car, your car, this is the thing you hit first. So it's there for safety reasons, obviously, a bumper. Right, if there's a serious accident, you can also get trapped in the car. So that's obviously the situation when you cannot get out, right? You cannot open the locks and you need some professional help to get you out of the car. Right, so we've covered some car accidents. Now let's have a look at some fire accidents, fire emergencies. Alright, so what can happen to a place is someone can set fire to it, that is to make it start burning. It could also happen incidentally, by accident of course. If it happens, the thing or the building starts burning, it's on fire, we say. Well, in this kind of situation, obviously we're trying to extinguish or put out fire. And I got a question to you now. What is the kind of equipment, you see it in the picture, that we use to put out or to extinguish fire? You might have it in your office, actually. What is it? What do you call it? Does anybody know? Camila, very good answer. Perhaps somebody else knows, right? Should be 2 words, if it helps you. All right, and Evelina's the next one with the correct answer. Yes, so what I'm talking here about is a fire extinguisher. Thank you. For extinguishing a fire, so it's easy to remember. All right, let's go on. Things can catch fire, right? So if our curtains are on fire, a rock can catch fire, right? Start burning, because fire spreads quickly. It moves from one thing to another very quickly. It spreads all over the room, the house. What can also happen, obviously, if we are in a place which is on fire, is that we can burn ourselves. And the next word we see here, perhaps not very much connected with fire, but with burning. You can scald yourself, but that's what happens when you touch a hot pot with hot liquid. It could be also with steam. I remember myself when I was little trying to check if water was boiling in a kettle, put my nose there, and I scalded it, right? It was all red and it hurt. So don't do that. Right, so when we hear the fire alarm going off, the first thing we should probably do is call the emergency fire department and try to evacuate, to leave the place as quickly as possible. Right, So much about fire accidents. Let's have a look now at water accidents, water emergencies. So one of the most serious things or predicaments that can happen when we spend time at a lake would be drowning. Oh, sorry, I see someone is asking a question about to burn and scald again. Let me come back to the previous slide again. So you can burn yourself like with fire, right? But to scald means to burn oneself with hot liquid or steam. Do we know what steam is? Steam. Like if water is boiled. Yes, I see some people know the word. So if water is boiling, you see steam, right? So that's what happens. You can scald yourself with steam, hot steam. All right. So let's go on and talk about water accidents. So one of the accidents which can happen there is drowning. So this is what happens when you will simply stay underwater for too long and you just die there. Well, a serious emergency can also result from jumping into shallow water. Shallow is the opposite of deep. Shallow water is not deep enough to cover our body. So if you don't know some place where you go swimming, you don't know what's at the bottom of this water, just don't jump into it because it might result in a very serious injury of your back, for example. Right, if we go swimming, let's also make sure, exactly, sorry, someone said it can result in a spine injury, exactly, your back or spine. Right, when swimming in somewhere, let's make sure there's a lifeguard, right? A person who can help us, can give us help if there is such need. When we go sailing on a boat, let's make sure there is a life belt. So the special belt you wear in the water to prevent you from sinking. Right, so before we do that, let's sort of check if the ship is equipped with them. Some other emergencies that can happen when we spend time in water could be we can get stung by a jellyfish. Like if we, for example, go to some hot country. That's the first picture. You can also step on a sea urchin. That's the next picture. Right, that must be a really terrible thing. Stepping on something like that must hurt terribly. Right, and then what can also happen to us is we can get heat stroke or sunstroke. That would be fever or weakness caused by being outside in the heat of the sun for too long. Right, I have a test for you right now. Have a look at it. There are 4 sentences, and again, please use the question box to answer. What is number 1? We cannot leave the car. Where? Number 1, where? Right, some very good answers were trapped, thank you. Number 2, mind you don't yourself with that hot pot. That's actually the word you asked me about. Alright, some very good answers are coming. You don't scald yourself. Very good, thank you. Number 3, I feel awful. I think the food wasn't fresh. I have. Right. That's what it is, food poisoning. And last one, man overboard. Here's what's happening to this person. Last sentence. Lots of good answers, right? He's drowning. Thank you very much. Alright, so let's imagine food poisoning happens to us. We've eaten something bad and we feel awful and we have no medicine with us. So what we can do in such a situation is simply go to a chemist. What we can do is simply ask the pharmacist for help. How? Simply by saying, what can you recommend for this and this predicament? Or could you advise me what I should do about this and that? Or could you advise me some medicine, some cure for diarrhea, for instance? Right, so when buying some medicine, especially one we don't know, we might want to ask about side effects. right? So what else can happen to us when we take this medicine? What bad effects might it have on our body? And if we do not go to the doctor, we may only buy medicine which is sold over the counter. It means well, you have no sort of document, special paper from a doctor saying you can buy this and that medicine. And the kind of document is called prescription. So you can buy medicine on prescription. It's the thing you get from a doctor, or over the counter that is without a prescription. Right. Well, but if there is no chemist near where we are, and someone needs immediate help, the situation is really serious, what we would try to do is obviously give first aid to this person. So what we should do when giving first aid is, first of all, we should check the surroundings. We should sort of make sure we are safe. Right? Let's see if, there's no fire, no toxic smoke or gas or electric wires that could hurt us. We don't want to become victims ourselves. When coming up to the person, what we do is we see if the person responds to touch, can tickle the person's bare hand, or to sound, so we can talk to the person, maybe shake a little, just check if the person responds. Well, if the person doesn't, then we check if he or she is breathing. We check if we can feel the pulse. We can move the person's head to the back a little. Well, if the person does not respond, if he or she is not breathing, so the next thing we should do is, first of all, call for help. But also we can try to give the person CPR. That stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. As you can see in the picture, that's the emergency procedure for preserving brain function and restore blood circulation in the person. So I'm not going to give you any training here. I'm not a professional in this field. I would only like to say that the basic thing to remember is that we can give 30 chest compressions, something the person in the picture is doing, and then 2 rescue breaths, and that usually should help. I found a very nice video. If you go to this link, I've provided here below, you'll find a very funny video showing you how to give this CPR. So you'll see the link in the materials. Please go to the website and watch the video. It's really funny. Right. Let's imagine we're in shock. We don't really know what to do. We've panicked. Or we've actually tried to help the person, but it doesn't work. So what we should do next, actually before we even give this CPR to the person, we should call for help. So if we're in the European Union, in Russia, in Ukraine or Switzerland, we would dial 112. In the United States or Canada, the number is 911. Well, if you're going to another country, you can go to Wikipedia and check what the emergency numbers are in this country. It's also important to remember that when you call for help, you'll be asked some questions, and you'll have to give information about your name, your location, the victim's age. You have to say how old the person is. Someone will also ask you if the person is conscious, if he or she is breathing. So you might say the person's unconscious, or I cannot feel the pulse, the person's not breathing. And you obviously have to describe the situation, what's happened. It's hard to predict, but perhaps some of these phrases might be helpful, like the person's fallen, has choked, hit her head against something, perhaps has been hit, or maybe has broken a body part, maybe is bleeding, or simply in shock. Right. It's obviously advisable to take the person to accidents and emergencies, emergency department, emergency room or casualty department, a special place in a hospital or some health center where the person will be given professional medical help. There are some situations like critical cases and situations that threaten your life when you definitely should be taken to this place. This is when you lose your consciousness, when it's like you suddenly go into deep sleep, when you feel this persistent that is continuing and severe, very bad chest pain, when you have breathing difficulties, when there's severe bleeding which cannot be stopped, and something you perhaps you can see in the picture. Right, when we are in such a place, when we are in a hospital, there are some people will surely see. I've provided some pictures here. So what about the first picture on the left? Who is this, do you think? What do you call this person? The first picture on the left, top left picture. If you could use the question box to tell me. Right, I see some Polish word. You could try to use one of the words I've put on the slide. I need more answers. I have 2 different answers. Perhaps more people would like to say. Who do you think this is? A physician, a nurse, paramedic, a surgeon? Most of you are saying it's a physician, and it's a very good answer. So that would be the kind of doctor providing medical help to you and your family. What about the person below? The person on the left, so it's bottom left. What do you think? The person studying a picture, checking if the bone is broken. Right, not all good answers. This one actually is a surgeon. Right, lots of answers are correct. Great. What about the picture on the right, top right? The person who usually assists the doctor. Right. All answers are correct now. It's a nurse, thank you. And the one at the bottom is obviously a paramedic, the only one left. A paramedic, that would be the person who tried to save your life, giving you some basic treatment, right? Like performing CPR before some medical help arrives, before the person is taken to hospital, right? All right, so let me give you a test. What about the person who saves lives by giving basic treatment until professional medical help arrives? That would be, of course, that's a paramedic, thank you. What about the person providing medical care to individuals and families? Right, a physician. And the last one, a specialist in medical treatment that involves cutting off a body. Wait. Right, that's a surgeon. Thank you. All good answers. Very good. All right. So, we are at this Accidents and Emergencies department room, and we go to see the doctor. What questions can we expect? Will the doctor ask us? Let's have a look. What seems to be the problem? What's bothering you? Where does it hurt? Might be obvious, actually. If we had a wound, a cut. Could you roll up your sleeve? That's when a doctor wants to take your blood pressure, maybe give you an injection. What are your symptoms, right? What's actually happening? Some more. We need to take a urine or a blood sample to examine it. See what's wrong with you. I'm going to prescribe you some antibiotics, right? Are you on any sort of medication, right? Are you taking any medicine at the moment? And I want you to see a specialist. Go to a specialist doctor. Right. So what usually happens is you get this kind of piece of paper from the doctor saying what medicine you need to buy. What is it? Is it a prescription, a receipt, or a recipe? please use the question box to tell me. First picture, what is it? I actually talked about it already. Of course, a prescription. What about the middle picture? Looks like some instructions for cooking. What is this? Right, lots of good answers. Right. Most answers are correct. A recipe. Thank you. And the last one, obviously, is a receipt. The kind of... Oh, maybe let me ask you. Can you use Polish and use the question box to tell me what this is? What's a receipt? Plenty of good answers. Very good. Right, the kind of piece of paper saying what you've bought, how much it cost. Paragon, that's the right word. Right. Okay. Let's now revise. I think it's going to be revision for you, really. Let's have a look at the human body. What body parts are these? If you look at the first arrow on the left, what is it pointing to? What is this? That's a very simple one. Obviously, it's a head. And then below, between your head and your shoulder, sorry, helped you too much. Below your neck, you've got, right. Not yet, not the arm, not yet. Right, this is your shoulders, you've got two of them. Then, sort of in the middle of your arm, what's there in the middle of your arm? Right, Anna, very good answer. No, this is the elbow, not just yet, but elbow. What do you wear your watch around? The kind of joint between your forearm and your hand. What is this? That's what, very good answer. It's a wrist. Thank you. Now, what about the upper part of your leg? What's the next arrow pointing to? It's a thigh. Very good. Thank you. What about the lower part of your leg? What is this? Right. Camila's right again. It's a cuff. Thank you. What's there at the bottom? And I mean, the arrow's pointing to the end of the foot. Sort of right. It's a foot. But what's there at the front of the foot? These are not fingers. They are. Heel is at the back of the foot, and at the front we have toes. Thank you. Now let's look at the first arrow on the right. What is it pointing to? Neck. Thank you, of course. And then if you have a look at the sort of middle of the person, what's the arrow pointing at? Right, the chest it is. And then below it, what do we have? Oh, very good, Camila. You're right again. All right. Some people say stomach, some people say belly, some people say abdomen, and all are good answers, right? Abdomen being a medical term, belly, you know, like a word we would use. Children would actually say it's a tummy. Stomach is what we have inside. Oh, right. So actually, we know now why Camila's such an expert. Right, it's not new. It's not new to her actually. Okay. So what's there on the under the neck? I mean, sorry, at the back of the body, below the neck, we have. Don't go there. We have first hip. I don't know what. Right. Okay. So hip or hips. And then we have bottom, something to sit on, right? In the middle of our leg, what is that? Knee, thank you. And I think at the bottom, it's like something you can often hurt. Right, it's an ankle, thank you. And I'll be careful, as it's an ankle, not uncle, right? So the first picture on the left shows an ankle. Picture on the right shows an uncle, right? A relative, person, family member, right? Family member. So ankle, uncle. Please notice the difference in spelling and different pronunciation. Okay. Now, what about human organs now? I provided them for you. They might be new words for some people. So the thing at the top, larynx, in other words, voice box. This is the kind of organ that produces voice. Now, if you look to the right, it's easy peasy for Camila, maybe not for others. If you look to the left, we'll see lungs, the organs we use to breathe. And then below we see liver, the organ which cleans your blood, among others. Then below, perhaps you can't see them very well, kidneys. They're shaped like beans, and they produce, they make urine, and urine is collected in bladder down below. If we now look to the right, we'll see heart. Well, that's I'm sure it's obvious for you. And then we see stomach. That's where the food goes. And below, long tubes, small, large intestines. So long tubes in our body for which food passes after it leaves the stomach. Right, I've got a test for you as usual. Alright, so what is it that you sit on? Please use the chat box to tell me. Right, all the answers are correct. Of course, it's a bottom. Now, what do you shrug when you don't know the answer to some question? Shrug, it's like you raise them a little to show you don't know the answer. Ah, very good answer. Shoulders. Thank you. Women like to have them slim. What could that be? Hips. Okay, what else? Legs. What else? Perhaps these are thighs. All answers are correct, of course. Now, some people mistake it for an ankle. What's that? Ankle, of course. And you wear your watch around it. Wrist. Not an ankle. It's a wrist. I'm sure it was the answer to the previous one. Right, so you wear your watch around your wrist. Of course, more questions. There are two of them. They look like beans. Do you remember? They produce urine. Kidneys, of course, kidneys these are. Now, we use them to breathe. What do we use to breathe? Lungs, very good. Now, it's commonly called the voice box. Do you remember this one? It perhaps was new to some people. What's called the voice box? It produces right, Ivana was first this time. It's larynx. Perhaps you'd like me to use Polish here. Larynx being krtań, right? Now, it hurts when you've eaten too much. What would that be? Stomach, exactly. That's what it is. Thank you. You've passed the test with flying colors. Very good. Thank you. Okay. So, let's go on now and talk a little about how accidents happen. What can happen to a poor body is we can slide or slip in a banana skin, banana peel. Some people actually think it's funny when it happens. You can also trip over something. This is when your foot hits something by accident and then you lose balance or even fall. You can fall off a ladder, like when trying to change a light bulb. You can hit your head, for example, against something. You can swallow a small object. That would probably be about children, right? Playing with a toy and swallowing a small element. So what can happen as a result? As a result, you can get some body injuries. We can, for example, when falling, we can twist an ankle. So that means to hurt your ankle by pulling, turning it to suddenly while you're moving. You can also, these are synonyms actually, you can twist or sprain your ankle or your wrist. That is to damage the joint in your body by suddenly twisting it. You can also strain or pull your muscle. So that's to injure your muscle by using it too much, or perhaps making it work too hard. Right? What else can happen when you fall? For example, you can get a bruise on you. You can see a bruise on your skin. That would be the purple or brown mark on the skin. If a bee or a wasp stings you, the place becomes bigger and bigger. It swells. You can say it's swollen. You can also hurt yourself when cutting something, and there could be a cut on your skin, your body, or a wound. A wound being an injury to your body that's made by a weapon, like a knife, like in fighting, for example. What else can happen when you break your bone? In medicine, we say it's fracture. Your bone's being fractured. We can also talk about dislocations, like when a joint pops out. Is the word joint clear for everyone? What's a joint? Would you like to tell me in the question? Stuff przegub also, right? So pops out. It's like it just moves out of its normal position, right? So dislocation would be. Would you like to use Polish for this one? What do you think dislocation is? So joint, bone moves out of its normal position. Zwichnięcie, thank you, zwichnięcie. Dislokacja also, right? And slipped disc, that would be a painful injury when one of the connecting parts between the bones in your back moves out of place. So then you feel pain in your back, in your legs, your bottom even. Would you like to use Polish for this one also? Wypadnięcie dysków. Thank you, Kamila. I can always count on you. Thank you. Some other medical conditions. Heart attack. That's a very serious and sudden medical condition in which somebody's heart stops working, causing them great pain. What's it in Polish? Heart attack. Maria's first this time. Atak serca, zawał, right? That's what it is. Now, what about stroke? That's when a blood tube in your brain suddenly bursts or is blocked. That would be udar, wylew also. Thank you. And the last one, coma. Do we know this one? Ogrążesz, exactly. So that's like when we're unconscious for a long time because of an injury or illness. Careful, coma, not comma. Do you remember what is the spelling of the first? What does the first picture present? Is it the word with one M or double M? You could use the question box to tell me. One M, exactly. So this is coma, and the punctuation mark you see on the right, you use to separate things on a list, would be comma. Right. Please remember the difference. And as usual, I have a test for you. Some people think it's funny when you do what on a banana skin? Right, when you slide, when you slip. Of course. There are small children in the house. There should be no small objects lying around, as they could. Yes, just careful with the spelling of the word. Swallow them. Right. Swollen is a different one. Swallow, right? Swollen is like when you're stung by a bee and this place becomes bigger and bigger. So it's swallow. Can you take away your shoes, please? I wouldn't like to. Václav was first this time. Very good. To trip over them and fall as a result. One more test. What does the patient say? What does the doctor think the problem is? Can't move my leg. I think it's broken. And the doctor thinks it is broken. But what would he call? Right, he'd say it's fracture. Thank you. Now the patient says, I've lifted the sofa. Now my back, bottom and legs hurt terribly. What's that? What does the doctor think it is? What's the problem? Right. Yes, dislocated or slipped disc. Thank you. And the last one, I fell when jogging. My foot is all swollen now. That would be sprained, twisted ankle. Thank you. Right. All right. Thank you very much. So when this happens, when we sprain our ankle, we obviously feel terrible pain. Pain or ache? Well, my students often have problems with these two words. We say we feel pain in some body part, like we feel pain in our back and our chest. If you want to use the word ache, you must put it together with the body part in front. So you say you have stomach ache, toothache, headache, backache, earache. Obviously, you can also say that something hurts you, right? Like my leg hurts me, for example. There's also an adjective sore. If you can hardly speak, if you have a problem with your throat, you can say you have a sore throat, or heels, right? Like the back part of your foot. So if you have a sore throat and you can hardly speak, what is this medical condition called? Well, in Polish we call it angina, but what about in English? Is it the same? Is it also this word? It's actually pronounced angina in English. Well, that's a tricky question because it's not. If you look to the right and look at the picture, a serious infection of the tonsils. Tonsils, do we know what these? Oh, right, gałki. So this is what we call tonsillitis. Angina, on the other hand, is a medical condition in which you have bad pain in your chest because your heart is weak. Perhaps, like, I might want to ask Camila if she knows what that is. Did you know? Angina? What kind of disease in Polish? That would be dusznica. Okay, something totally different. So angina is not angina. Angina is tonsillitis in English. And another test for you. I've got toothache. Exactly. I can't stand the pain. Of course. I have to cancel my class today. I can't speak. I have a very good answer. Sore throat. It must be. It must be. What's the disease, illness? Right, tonsillitis. Very good. Ouch, my back. That's an easy one. My back. Can't move. Yes, my back hurts. Thank you. Very good answers. Now remember, angina, in English, angina is not, the problem with your throat, right? It's a totally different illness. Dusznica. All right. Now, how can professionals help us? What treatment can we get? If we go to the doctor, if we go to the hospital, we'll obviously be examined, we'll be given checkup, this general medical examination that a doctor gives you to make sure you're healthy. Well, your blood pressure might be taken to see if it's high, low, normal, preferably. Your temperature will be taken with a thermometer to see how high it is. If you haven't got fever, right, very high temperature. You might be given injections, something we don't like, the thing we see in the picture down below. You can have EKG performed, electrocardiogram, similarly to Polish. We can be put on a drip. What does that one mean? Does anybody know? A drip. Anybody knows? Very good, Camila, again. So that's a piece of equipment in a hospital for putting liquids directly into your blood, like after an operation when you can't eat. So that's exactly what it is, kroplówka, right? You can also be sent for an X-ray, right? A special picture to see if your bones are broken. Right. What else can they do to us in a hospital? Well, if we have a wound, a cut, it'll be cleansed by a nurse, so she'll make it completely clean. Our wound will be sanitized, sterilized, so dirt, bacteria will be removed from it, and it'll be killed, actually. The wound will be dressed, so a bandage will be put on it. And if we have like a deep or a large cut wound, then it'll be stitched up. Stitches will be put on it. probably with the kind of tool you see in the picture on the right. So then you can say, I have 10 stitches in my hand, right? Alright, some further treatment. As you can see in the picture, the person, the girl's leg is in plaster. She's got a plaster cast on her leg, and she's using crutches to to support herself, right? They help her to walk. What about a sling? What's a sling? Does anybody know? I suppose there's a question about USG, but should be the same word in English. Can check it for you later on. Right, I've got a very good answer from Camila again. So this is the kind of a piece of clothing you tie around your neck to support your injured arm or hand. Right, that would be hosta or temblak, right? That's what we call it. And splint. How about this one? Does anybody know? Right, Anna this time was first. So that would be a flat piece of wood or metal used for keeping a broken bone in the position when it bends. Right? Shrina, of course. Right, that's what it is. Right, so again I have a test for you. What do you see in the first picture on the left? Right, we've talked about it. What does the first picture on the left show? And yes, Joanna says it's a syringe, and a syringe it is. We just didn't talk about it. So what we talked about was an injection. So you're given an injection by means of a syringe, obviously. What about the one in the middle? Not a slip now, but I see some good answers. Of course, the person's hand might be in plaster, but I mean the cloth, it's a sling. Thank you. And the one on the right, top right picture, what does it show? A drip, of course, drip it is. If you look at the picture on the left, down left, bottom left, it would show us plaster, yes, but also crutches. Yes, and the picture on the right, what's the person doing? Exactly, she's taking her blood pressure, or to take blood pressure. Thank you. Right, you've been listening carefully. Alright, last but not least, let's have a look at a first aid kit. It's the kind of box everybody has in their cars, I suppose, or even at home. What should there be in a first aid kit? Well, obviously, you should have bandages in it, adhesive tape with some kind of glue on it. This is to make sure what you put on your wound stays in place, right? Like when you want to make sure that the bandage you put around a wound stays in place. You should probably, surely you should have band-aids or plasters in your first aid kit. That would be the piece of thin material that you stuck to your skin to cover a very small wound or cut. Painkillers, probably, right, to kill the pain. I've missed one. Thermal blanket, right, like when you want to cover a body injured in an accident, right, victim, casualty. Breathing barrier, that would be the kind of thing you might want to use when giving CPR to someone, when giving them rescue breaths. If it's a person, if it's a stranger, you don't know this person, you're afraid that perhaps he or she is suffering from some infectious disease and you don't want to get infected yourself, then you might want to use such a barrier with a hole in it when giving rescue breaths. A pair of non-latex gloves, for obvious reasons. Scissors, sterile gauze pads. What's that? That would be thin cotton that we tie around a wood. Thermometer and tweezers that you see in the picture. They'll be used to pull or move very small objects, perhaps from a wound. Women also use it to pluck their eyebrows. Alright, so now over to you. What do you need to cut somebody's clothing? See some good answers, of course. Scissors. What do you need to dress a wound? Number 2. Bandage. Remember, dress would be opatrzyć, right? So it would not be. Yes, of course, but you're right. You might need gloves. Not to right, not to carry bacteria onto the wound. You're right, actually. Sorry. What do you need to pull or move very small objects, like to remove something from a wound? Tweezers, thank you very much. And you need this to cover someone to keep them warm. That's an easy one. Right. That's a thermal blanket. Right. Blanket. Right. Careful with the spelling. Thank you. Thank you very much. All the answers have been correct. Thank you. Well, that's actually everything I have for you today. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that when you finally set off on holidays and spend your holidays away from home, none of the above will happen, and the only thing you might need will be just a plaster, a band-aid. So, have a lovely holiday.